The appendicular skeleton consists of your limbs and their point of attachment to the axioskeleton. We have your clavicle, which has your acromial end and your sternal end. And your clavicle is attached to your sternum at the sternoclavicular joint. And it is also attached to the scapula at the acromioclavicular joint. Now your scapula, which is also known to most people as your shoulder blade, has the spine, which is the rigid part that sticks up that you can actually feel when you move your shoulder back. You have your supraspinous fossa, which is the flat plate right here above your spine. You have the intraspinous fossa, which is the flat plate below the spine. You have the acromion, which is the end that attaches to the clavicle. You have the coracoid process, which is the part that comes up to the front, which is right in here. And then you have the coracoid cavity. The glenoid cavity, which is the cavity right in here where the actual ball of your humerus connects into your shoulder. On the underside of the scapula, you have the subscapular fossa, which is the flat part of the bone right inside of here. The next part of the appendicular skeleton would be your arm. The top bone in your arm is called the humerus. Up here on the top you have the head of the humerus, which is the ball part on the top. And then you have a bump right here on the top of the bone. It's called the greater tubercle. And then there's another bump here more medial, which is called the lesser tubercle. We have the deltoid tuberosity, which is the long part of your bone. We have the coronoid fossa, which is an indentation in the front of the distal part of the bone, and that is where the ulna joints in with the humerus. You've got on the back side of the bone, you've got your medial and your lateral epicondyle, which is where the bone is kind of flattens out and sticks out. You have the olecranon, which is again, it's kind of like almost like an indentation in the bone. And then you have the olecranon fossa, which is the flat part where the olecranon is. We've got the trochlea, and the trochlea articulates with the radius. The trochlea articulates with the ulna, and we've got the capitulum, which articulates with the radius. Farther down on your bone, on your arm, which most people call your forearm, you have the ulna and the radius. The ulna is medial and the radius is lateral to your body when you're standing in the anatomical position. On your ulna you have the coronoid process, which is the bump right here towards the top of the bone. And down here on the bottom you have the styloid process, which again is where the bone gets thicker closer to the joint. On the radius you have the head, which is at the top of the bone. You have the radial tuberosity, which is another piece of the bone that sticks out towards the top of the bone. And then at the bottom of the bone, where we have the width of the bone, It's called the styloid process. When you go farther down, we've got the carpals, which is your wrist. And we've got the proximal roll of carpals would be your scaphoid, your lunate, your triquetral, and your pisiform. And this is going from lateral to medial. And then the distal roll of your carpals, you have the trapezium, followed by the trapezoid, then the capitate, and the last one would be the hasmate, and again that's going from lateral to medial. And then right below that you have your metacarpals, and then you have your phalanges, which most people call their fingers. And the lower part of your appendicular skeleton, you have your pelvic girdle, which most people will call their pelvis. And the actual girdle itself is consisted of 3 bones. You have the ilium, which is the larger flat part of the bone. You've got the pubis, which is the one right here in the front, and they're connected approximately right here. And then on the bottom you have the ischium, and the ischium connects between the ilium, and it connects on the bottom right here in the front to the pubis. Now on your ilium you have your iliac fossa, which is the flat part of the bone. And then you've got your greater sciatic notch, which is right here, which is where your sciatica nerve goes through. You've got the iliac crest, which is the top part of the bone up here. And then you've got the anterior superior spine, anterior iliac spine, which is where the bone kind of sticks up a little bit right here. And then you go farther down and you have the obturator foramen, which is the actual hole right here where all your veins and blood vessels go down to your legs. You also have the ischiotuberosity, which is this rounded part that sticks out on your ischium. And then as we move farther down, we also have we have the pubic symphysis, which is where the 2 pubic bones connect from the left to the right. Now going down onto our leg, we have the femur, which is the largest bone in the body. It is the bone in your upper thigh. I'm losing the skeleton here. Okay, on the femur we have the head, which connects into the acetabulum of your pelvic girdle. We have the greater trochanter, which is this large knobby part, which would be your hip. And then as we come down, we have your medial epicondyle, which is this rounded part right here of the bottom of the femur. And then we have on the back, we have your medial and lateral condyles, which are these bumps right here on the bone where in between the tibia connects into. We have your lateral epicondyle, which is the side of the bone. And we've also on the inside of the bone have the medial epicondyle, which is the rounder part on the side of the bone at the bottom. Coming farther down on your leg, we have your patella, which is more known to everybody as your kneecap. And then as we go farther down, we have the medial the larger bone of the two on the bottom, the medial bone, is called the tibia. And on the top of it, we have the medial and lateral condyles, which is the parts that protrude farther out. We have the tibia tuberosity, which is the part that extends out towards the front. We have your proximal tibiofibular joint, which is right here in between the tibia and the fibula. That's the joint in between the two bones. And then again, we have the fibia, which is the smaller of the two bones. And then we have our distal tibiofibular joint, which is where the bones connect together on the bottom. On the medial side of the tibia, we have the medial mandibulus, which is the part that protrudes towards the inside, kind of like down with the bone that you can feel on your foot as your ankle bone. And we also on the fibula side, on the outside, the other bone that you can feel as your ankle is called the lateral malleolus. Then as we go farther down, we've got your ankle bones, or what we call the talus, which is more towards the top of your foot. And in the talus we have the navicular, which is medial. It's this larger bone right here. We have the cuboid, which is more of a square bone, which is lateral to the navicular. And then right below that, which would be distal to those, we have the medial, intermediate, and lateral-cubiform bones. Those are these bones right here. And then as we come farther down, on the top of your foot, we have the metatarsus, which are these 5 bones right here. And as you go down from there, you have your phalanges, which are known to everybody as your toes. And on the medial part, you have your great toe, which would be your hallux. And then as we come to the bottom, which your heel bone is your calcaneus. That's the bone that protrudes on the bottom. The talus articulates with the tibia, which allows you to move your foot up and down. And this concludes my appendicular skeleton video.